Linda Moreno has practiced criminal defense law in both state and federal courts for the last 30 years around the United States. She has successfully defended clients in a number of high-profile cases. She successfully represented, among other people, Sami AlArian, a Palestinian professor, and which was seen as the seminal test of the Patriot Act in the United States versus Sami AlArian.
Since 2005, I have defended 14 material support of terrorism cases which included the organizations of Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Al-Qaeda. I was privileged to represent the chairman of the board of the Holy Land Foundation, which Ms. Hollander spoke so eloquently about earlier this afternoon. I find that some of the things that the AlArian case and other material support of terrorism cases, the themes that are common are themes of censorship, themes of decontextualization, and of course of freedom of expression. But let me tell you who Sami AlArian is. He is a Palestinian. He was a tenured professor at a Florida university. He taught computer engineering. Being a stateless Palestinian is something that is on a cellular level for Palestinians, something that's always with them. Sami AlArian, however, really understood what it meant to be a stateless person when he first came into the United States and filled out his immigration form. And on the form, they asked, "What's your country of origin?" And he said, "Palestine." And the immigration officer crossed it out, because there was no Palestine in the computer of the Immigration and Naturalization Service. So they just put Egyptian. Shortly after 1995 and the Oklahoma City bombing, the local newspapers in Tampa, Florida, where Dr. AlArian worked and lived, decided that they were going to write stories that indicated the bombings were as a result of Islamic fundamentalists. That the Oklahoma City bombing not only was done by Muslims, but was probably done by Sami AlArian. But what was the real reality of what Sami AlArian was doing? Well, this is the problem being Palestinian and being effective for the Palestinian cause. In America, it wins you a lot of powerful enemies, and it won him a lot of powerful enemies that exist to this day. What he was really doing is he was lobbying Congress. He was meeting with dignitaries. He was fighting against the use of secret evidence in cases. And what did this effort earn him? Well, in 2003, it earned him an indictment that ran for 158 pages long and charged him with 53 crimes. Material support of terrorism, conspiracy to murder persons abroad, money laundering. The terrorist organizations at issue in the case was the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which has a flag here, which you can visit later if you like. I want to talk a little bit about John Ashcroft, my favorite attorney general to talk about. Now you have to remember, this is 2003, this is the Bush administration. Remember George Bush? How can we forget George Bush? John Ashcroft announced the indictment of my client in the Rose Garden. And he said, "We have captured the financial wizard of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad," the financial wizard. I want to tell you a little bit about the kind of evidence the government used in this seminal test of the Patriot Act. They had heard a conversation between two other men where one of the men said, "I had a dream about Sami AlArian, and it was a very bad dream." And so the government said, "We're going to use that. We're going to use that dream against Sami AlArian." Now, we objected and we said, unless they're going to bring in a dream interpreter, Your Honor, we don't think that this is relevant. But this was the kind of desperate lengths that the government went to in this case that they were so invested in. But the government decided in order to scare the jury, because that's what they like to do in these cases, is they were going to take a public bus. Now, you have them here. I've seen them in Berlin. You know, a public bus, you get on it. They took a public bus from Florida, and they put a bumper sticker on the back that said, "Proud to be an American." And they drove it to the Everglades, and they had video cameras all set up, and then they blew it up. They blew it up. The only people who ever blew up anything in that case was the government, not my client. And they took the tape and they asked the judge, they said, "Judge, we should be able to use this evidence against Sami AlArian. You wouldn't let us use the dream evidence. Let us use this tape of this bus." And the judge said, "Why is that relevant in this case?" And they didn't have a good answer. They said, "Well, so that the jury can see what a bus looks like when it's blown up." That did not come into evidence. We tried to convey to the jury that Sami AlArian, that his battle was not in Palestine, was not in Israel, was not blowing people up. His battle was in the United States of America, that he was trying to win the hearts and minds of the American people by talking about the Palestinian issue, by having and hosting these forums, by writing about the devastating effects of the occupation. When governments talk about terrorism, often, not always, but often they're talking about dangerous ideas. Ideas. They feel ideas are far more dangerous than weapons. And in the AlArian case, that idea was brought home when the FBI went to search the professor's home and his university office. They seized over 5,000 books. But they left his handgun. The dangerous part were the books, were the ideas, and were the publications. After the 6-month trial, and we rested and we presented no witnesses whatsoever, the jury refused to return a single guilty verdict against Sami AlArian and acquitted him of most of the serious charges. And the rest of the charges where they could not agree to acquit Dr. AlArian, 10 jurors voted to acquit and 2 jurors voted to convict. And in America, that's called a hung jury. But the point was that the federal government suffered a devastating defeat in this particular case. We are always heartened by juries who do not walk into an American courtroom to cast a ballot for politics. They come in to see if a real crime was committed. And in these cases and others, we see that juries are doing the right thing most of the time. I always have to remind myself and other lawyers who I work with that, we expect so much from justice in America, but we settle for so little. We try not to settle. We keep fighting on. Thank you so much.